Okay. $20. That's right, Cher. We just got over this pursuit. We're here in the Glendale area, right about Lake and Valencia. LAPD is still in pursuit, even though we're in Glendale. They're still continuing on this pursuit. They're calling for Glendale to assist, though. But this is a Audi sedan, 2018 model. You see it here. The suspect, the driver in there, still in the vehicle. What we understand is one passenger has already left the vehicle and been taken into custody when the vehicle stopped at a light earlier in the pursuit. But this started in the Pacoima area. It's made its way southbound on the 5 down here into Burbank, where it got off onto surface streets again. The CHP didn't get involved. Glendale PD has not gotten involved yet. They still have that air unit overhead, and then those LAPD ground units behind, 4 units behind this stolen car right now. Like you said, Cher, a pit maneuver has been authorized by the LAPD, but there's a lot of different factors that go into when they can do that. For one, they have to have a vehicle that's qualified and a driver that's trained, but two, they have to do it in a safe spot. And in this situation, we're westbound Verdugo in a residential area. You see LAPD, the airship overhead. It's a little dark here in the shadows, but we'll try to lighten that up as the vehicle pops out here. But one of those things when we get into a neighborhood like this is it's not really the best spot to do a pit maneuver, just due to all those cars. There's pedestrians out on the streets. We wouldn't want this car to spin out of control and go into a home or something like that. So the LAPD has to keep all of that accounted for and make the best decision, because they want to keep the public safe at all costs. And a pit maneuver, even though it might stop the pursuit, it might not be safe for that general public. Now LAPD, you can see they've kind of backed off a little bit. They are going to take a different approach now and pull those ground units away from the vehicle. That air unit's still overhead. This is still an active pursuit by the LAPD. So they are still keeping tabs on this vehicle now. We are on Tahunga Avenue from Victory, and it's kind of just been weaving its way through these streets here, very low rates of speed. It's been hitting a lot of traffic, stopping at red lights, so the driver isn't really breaking many traffic laws there. However, they are driving a stolen vehicle. That's what their want is for, and LAPD has yet to decide to give up on this pursuit. They're still keeping that air unit overhead and those ground units in the area, hoping right now that the vehicle stops and they can apprehend that suspect after the vehicle stops. But right now it seems like this driver of this stolen 2018 Audi 4-door, or 2-door, my bad, is just content on driving, running that stop sign there. Southbound Lake, going through from Tahunga now. This is technically Burbank we're in right now. So the suspect just kind of circling this area. We're not sure if maybe this is somewhere that the suspect is comfortable with or what the case may be, but the suspect just content to keep driving. And we'll see what happens here as we continue south. Another option they can consider in a pursuit like this is when the suspect kind of goes into these motions of sticking to certain streets, boxing around an area, kind of going in circles, as they can consider that spike strip. And while we don't necessarily talk about where they put those until after the suspect has approached them and passed them, that is a tactic that the LAPD could be considering right now. We're not sure at this point, but what those do is they pop the tires of those vehicles, make it really hard for the suspect to maneuver, as well as for the drivetrain of the vehicle to drive that vehicle when it's down on those metal rims. And so it can bring the pursuit to an end in a different fashion, but we haven't heard much on that yet. So right now it seems like the LAPD is just set to track this from the air. The driver isn't driving very erratically, minus running those stop signs. but you can still see there are units in the area. That looks like Glendale PD right there, involved and ready to help. You see LAPD has re-engaged that unit. Wasn't holding too far back. Looks like maybe less than a quarter mile or so, but LAPD is still on the tail of this driver, wanted for driving a stolen vehicle, starting in the Pacoima area. It looks like we might be turning into a driveway, maybe an alleyway, and we're going into an alleyway, and we'll try to get these trees out of the way. That's right, Cher. So we have that air unit still overhead. We saw that air unit go through the shot. And even though those ground units might be holding back, we don't see them behind. That air unit still calling out the position of this stolen vehicle to those officers on the ground. Twofold, to let them know where the vehicle is in terms of the pursuit, to let them know also where it terminates and where that suspect's going if the suspect ends up terminating. But also, the third thing is to keep those watch commanders and those dispatchers back at the command center and the communications center apprised of the situation so that they can make the proper decisions on who to get involved in this pursuit, whether they need Glendale or Burbank to take over, as well as what tactics to use to end it, whether that's a pit maneuver or a spike strip, things like that. So there are a lot of different things happening, and that air unit is one of the essential tools in making those decisions possible for the commanders and different staff monitoring this pursuit. Now, we were just talking about how these pursuits end, and it's always different with a pursuit, but like you're saying, Cher, staying inside is the best option if you live in this area of Burbank off of Victory and Alameda, just due to the unknown nature of how this will end. Will it end in someone's driveway? Will it end in a crash? Will the suspect run into someone's home and then turn into a standoff? So best option is to stay indoors, lock your doors and windows, and tune into KTLA to watch the pursuit and see what's going on in your neighborhood. It's the safest option, that's for sure, rather than being on the street corner trying to document it yourself. So now we're back southbound on Alameda, coming up on Chavez Street here in Burbank, and it looks like, if I pull out just a little bit, police department has still kept their distance. They're hoping the suspect will just pull over and give up, but it doesn't seem like that suspect is quite doing that yet. It looks like the suspect is just adhering to the traffic laws right now, stopping at this red light, not trying to bring up very much more attention to themselves, but they are in that stolen vehicle. There is that air unit overhead calling to both LAPD, but as well as Burbank and the Glendale, as this is kind of their area as well. We're moving a little more out of the Glendale territory, but those dispatchers back at the communication center coordinating between the different offices, between the different departments on who would get involved if this pursuit terminates, how the perimeters would be set up, and what assistance LAPD has in this pursuit. Moving now, continuing on Alameda. Now we're going through Main Street here in Burbank. Still only going about 20-30 miles an hour on the speedometer as we look on a Skyview 5. But this suspect has made quite a ways. It's probably about a 10-15 mile drive from the Pacoima area where this started, around 6:14 to be exact. Wanted for driving a stolen vehicle, and it's made its way all the way down here to Burbank. Just about the 134 is what this street is paralleling here on Alameda, going east or westbound right now towards the Walt Disney Studios, Warner Brothers Studios, all of that. So that's kind of the general area that we're in, just south of the Burbank Airport. But LAPD is still holding back. We don't see any units behind the vehicle turning into this neighborhood now northbound on Reese from Alameda. This is a dead-end street, so we'll have to see what happens here. Not sure if there's any... Oh, there you go. Yeah, at least 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll see what happens here. And this is a very dangerous situation. We don't know the status of that driver. They're not going to necessarily box that driver in. You see them just kind of following that driver around. That would have been an opportunity to box the driver in, but if they don't know the status of that driver, if the driver has any weapons or anything like that, they're going to kind of take the side of caution and not put themselves in a situation where that vehicle is facing directly at an officer or something like that, especially with the speeds and the driving consistency of this vehicle. The driver isn't posing much risk to the public right now, so it's best to just let this continue than put officers or the public in a neighborhood like that in any danger. But if I pull out just a little bit, you can see people are coming out into the street, hearing those sirens, seeing those lights, hearing the airship overhead, trying to see what's going on, and that's just what we were talking about, how that can become a dangerous situation, especially in a termination, because not only do the officers have to worry about the suspect inside the vehicle and what the suspect may be doing or what the suspect may have, like a weapon or something like that, but they have to worry about protecting those bystanders as well now. So it kind of takes some of the focus off of apprehending the suspect and puts some of the focus on keeping the public safe, which puts the officers into a little bit different, a little more complex of a situation as we go now eastbound on Alameda from Reese there, coming up on Sparks. So the police department, that's just something else they have to worry about when people are out trying to see a pursuit for themselves, is if this ends right here, how are they going to keep those people safe that are out on the street corners, and how are they going to apprehend that suspect as well without putting anyone in harm's way? So just another complexity to the pursuit that can also be... Oh, definitely. And like, not only is it a danger in that sense of how this terminates and what type of weapons are in the vehicle, but this is a multi-thousand-pound vehicle, and that could be a weapon of itself. If this vehicle got in a car accident and span out of control and went up on a curb and into a sidewalk, if someone's standing right there, that's just a situation we don't want to see, we don't want to experience. And if the person's just out there to document the pursuit, that's just a very sad course of events. So it's just best, like you said, to stay inside because there are so many different aspects at foot when we're looking at a pursuit like this. Now at Victory in Alameda, the driver kind of wanted to jump around that vehicle looking to turn. It looks like we're going to go through possibly a red light there. Kind of the first traffic violation we've seen at a major intersection with a lighted intersection there. So the driver must see those officers behind him and feeling the heat a little bit and wanting to get away from that and continue on now. It looks like we're northbound on Victory, coming up on Elmwood, turning back into what looks like to maybe be a commercial, turning into a residential area. And if we pull out those police units, those black and whites are holding pretty far back. And the good thing about that is while we didn't see any extremely quick or erratic driving earlier, but those officers holding a little farther back doesn't encourage the driver to do any of those quick or erratic movements that could put the public in danger. So that's one of the reasons they do that. Right now we're in a great spot. I'm going to adjust my camera a little bit. I can kind of get a shot inside the vehicle, and it looks like we just have the driver in there, maybe a black tank top. fiddling around in center center console, and that's all we can see. Now we see that tinted window, but just a little glimpse of the driver there for us here from Sky 5. Now on Main Street from Cedar, going roughly northbound, kind of a northwest direction right now through that crosswalk there, and continuing on. LAPD in the air and on the ground, still following this stolen vehicle out of Pacoima, working our way through the Burbank area. Share. Thank you for joining us on KTLA.com. I'm Colton Von Pertz in Sky 5 with my pilot David Viskovich. Right now we're following this pursuit of this stolen 2018 Audi two-door vehicle we see here. This started in the Pacoima area and it's made its way now into the Burbank area. We're on Victory right about Cedar. If you were following us on the KTLA 5 News at 6:30, we were talking about different tactics that the police could use to bring this to an end. The one they're choosing to use right now is putting this pursuit in tracking mode. So what they're doing is keeping those ground units back, just allowing the air unit to follow this overhead, see where the driver goes, where the driver decides to stop. Turning a corner there, going now westbound on Ash from Victory Boulevard, Valencia from Victory Boulevard. And we'll have to see what the suspect does. We've been here before. The suspect's been here before. The suspect's just kind of circling this kind of residential area off of Victory. It's made its way away a few times, but it's coming right back. So this might be a good opportunity for the LAPD to engage, do something like a pit or a spike strip if they can find the right time and the right resources. But they have air units overhead, and even though we don't see the ground units close behind, that air unit's calling out the position of this pursuit to those ground units, so when this suspect does stop or get out, the suspect can be apprehended in a timely manner by those ground units by setting up a perimeter or whatever is necessary. Coming out here on Main Street from Valencia, we'll have to see what happens. And we're going back northbound on Main Street from what looks like to be around Glenwood here in Burbank. LAPD in pursuit still from the sky. You can see some additional resources from Glendale as well here to assist as well. Now we're on Oak from Main Street about, so we'll see what happens here. LAPD is talking about what tactics they're going to use to bring this to an end through that stop sign there, not even slowing down. LAPD there right back on the tail. We'll see what happens here. LAPD just got reauthorized to engage in the pursuit once again, so we'll see what happens, and it looks like the LAPD is going to try a pit maneuver, but without that punch bumper, it didn't get the grab it needed. And so now that kind of spooked that driver there. So we're continuing on just a little bit faster now here, westbound on Oak from Beechwood. See what LAPD does here, getting back on the tail of that suspect vehicle, and it slows down. And we'll see what happens. LAPD pretty much saying, hey, we're not going anywhere. We're back on your tail. It's best to pull over. If not, we're going to bring this to an end in our own way. But working our way under these trees, we will pop out of those. You see it just like that. LAPD still here. Now it looks like they're authorized again to do that pit maneuver now that they're re-engaged in the pursuit, going westbound on Oak from Orchard now. Not stopping for any stop signs. very dangerous for the public. You see people out in their driveways watching this, seeing what's going on. I mean, I would be interested in hearing, seeing what the police sirens that I heard in my house were by going out on the driveway. So I get what they're going through, but a very dangerous situation for these pedestrians as this pursuit goes through their neighborhood, especially with a pit maneuver like this being authorized. See what happens here as we're turning northbound Keystone from Oak, and it looks like not the best spot for that pit maneuver due to the direction of that turn, but that Crown Victoria, that LAPD unit from the Foothill Division, ready to do that when the time is right. Coming up on a major here. This looks to be just about maybe Olive from Keystone. We'll see what happens. Suspect stopping at the light. And for the most part, that's what we've been seeing for this pursuit, is the suspect stopping at traffic lights, letting the traffic go. A bicyclist going across, that suspect was creeping out there. Luckily, they stopped. But for the most part, obeying traffic laws, minus running a few red lights, running a few stop signs. But a very major street here, so not the place to be doing that. You can see vehicles are pulled to the side right there, hearing those lights and sirens probably, trying to stay out of the way. But the best option there is just to get out of the intersection and continue on your way if you can. But they're trying to figure out what to do next here as the suspect sits here at this light here at Olive and Keystone here in the area of Burbank. Turning eastbound Olive now from Keystone. And so we talk about pit maneuvers, and they are a very tricky thing. I can tell you from experience of doing a police driving training course that they are tricky to do, because your whole life when you're driving, you're taught not to hit other cars. And it's just not something that people understand or want to do, or it's just not in your nature. And so these officers have to train to be able to actually come up on a vehicle and then create an actual intentional impact with it to spin that vehicle out of control and disable it. Once that car spins, usually the onboard computer will disable it, or it'll break that transmission. But often it just disables the driving mechanism, and the vehicle is pretty much inert and can't do any more. So that is the intent of the pit maneuver, is to disable the vehicle in that fashion. And then often after that, they can box in the vehicle and then bring that suspect out verbally, but it is a very tricky maneuver. It takes a lot of practice. LAPD, as well as all of the other agencies, for the most part here in Southern California, train very extensively on how to complete these pit maneuvers in a safe fashion, so it doesn't injure the public, it doesn't injure officers or that suspect, as the LAPD, all our police agencies, all they want to do is protect people, and so they don't want to put anyone at risk. Now continuing eastbound on Olive through Griffith Park Boulevard here in Burbank, trying to find that right moment to maybe do that pit maneuver again. There's even speed requirements on a pit maneuver on when it's best to do. So we'll have to see what happens as we continue on Olive to the eastbound. Keep going this way. Suspect's going to make his way back towards the 5 freeway. We'll have to see what happens there. One of the big issues that the LAPD is running into right now is that pedestrian traffic on those sidewalks. They're not doing that pit maneuver due to that increased traffic. They don't want to put any of those people at risk if this vehicle spins out of control and goes into a sidewalk. So they're holding back. So that is actually one of the things that Cher and I were talking about earlier on the 6:30 of not only of this pursuit being dangerous for pedestrians if this pursuit ends in their driveway, and then, we don't know the weapons situation, but also the vehicles themselves are so heavy and dangerous, they could put people at risk as well. So the LAPD has to consider all of that when they're making their decisions on pit maneuvers and other techniques to bring a pursuit to an end. Now working down this street here, this is Tahunga Avenue from Victory once again. We've been here before, just going the other way. And the suspect's still just cruising about 30 miles an hour. LAPD right on their tail saying, hey, we're not going anywhere, we're still with you, and we're going to stick with you until this comes to an end. Southbound Lake from Tahunga. See LAPD still overhead, calling those streets for those officers on the ground so they can focus on the driving and focus on the different tasks they need to keep the public safe on the ground, not hitting any other vehicles, stopping at traffic signals when they need to, as well as not hitting the suspect vehicle as well, so that air unit takes over some of the responsibilities. Turning now on Santa Anita from Lake, going eastbound now, so just working our way through these neighborhoods. This has kind of been a theme of the suspect. They kind of zigzag through a neighborhood and then go back on the majors for a few and then make their way into another neighborhood. And so now we're still continuing westbound Santa Anita from Lake, going through about Verdugo Drive. If you're in this area and you hear these sirens, hear the helicopters overhead, go inside, lock your doors and windows, because tune into us just like you're doing. So that's the best way to see what's going on and stay safe. LAPD coming in for that pit maneuver, vehicle slowing down, making it hard for them to get that momentum to do that pit maneuver. So LAPD just going to continue in the pursuit now. Still northbound Victory from Verdugo Avenue. LAPD, that black and white there, speeding up with that suspect vehicle. We'll see what happens here as we continue. Coming up to a red light, suspect's going to stop. Here, Victory and Olive once again. We'll see what happens. Continuing through Olive now on Victory. Going about 30 miles an hour. LAPD creeping up. Suspect saying, nope, I'm going to go faster. And the pursuit is back on highest speeds we've seen here on surface streets, going up to about 70 miles an hour now, working our way on Victory Boulevard, coming up on Magnolia. We'll see what happens here as we come up to this intersection. And it looks like we're stopping for traffic once again. So suspect saying, hey, we see you back there. We're going to go a little faster. And the LAPD catching up very quickly after that. Back on the red light here, not running any red lights right now in this pursuit. Magnolia and Victory is where we're sitting here in the Burbank area. Still moving northbound Victory through Chestnut Street. About 50 miles an hour. The fastest we've seen it on surface streets. For the most part, for the duration of this pursuit, since we've been overhead, it's only been going about 30 miles an hour. So working our way up into the 50s and 60s is quite the surprise. But with LAPD getting a little more involved in the pursuit, a little more close to the vehicle, it seems like that suspect is adapting a little bit now. Now, if you just look at this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 black and white units behind this pursuit. We have LAPD. We have some help from Burbank PD as well. So this is their area. So they're going to hang out, be involved as they know this area best. News Center, are you talking to me up here in Sky 5? Okay, cool. It was the death. For sure. Victory in Burbank now is where we're sitting here in Burbank proper. LAPD still in pursuit of this stolen vehicle. Pursuit started nearly an hour ago, around almost 2 minutes till the hour. Now 6:14 is when this started in Pacoima, up in the north end of the San Fernando Valley, right at the 5 and 170 area. Right before the 118, that's kind of the Pacoima area, if you're familiar with the San Fernando Valley. Now it moved its way down here into Glendale and now into Burbank, and it's kind of been racing through the streets down here, zigging and zagging back and forth through the different neighborhoods. Northbound Victory through Burbank. Lots of traffic here. Luckily, it's on the other side, so we don't have to worry about the suspect going on the wrong side of the road or anything like that. We haven't seen any erratic movements like that, luckily, in this pursuit. It's been relatively safe under those railroad tracks there, and kind of be coming up towards the 5 freeway, kind of running along that a little bit. There you can see the tracks and then the 5 freeway, so that's kind of where we're at, just on the west side of the 5, just north of Burbank Boulevard. Watch commander's still giving authorization for that pit maneuver when it's safe to do so. So the LAPD is going to come in here and didn't feel like that was the right moment. So they backed off just a little bit, especially with those speeds now up into the 60-mile-an-hour range. We're going about actually 72 miles an hour right now here on Victory Place, running along the railroad tracks here on the 5 freeway. LAPD still right on the tail of this stolen vehicle suspect. Pursuit starting an hour ago now in Pacoima. An Audi 2018 model. Here, one passenger has already left the vehicle and been taken into custody when the suspect stopped earlier at a light. So now it's, from what we understand, just the driver in that vehicle, and we haven't heard anything else about any more passengers. San Fernando Boulevard now from Victory Place, still working northbound at Brighton right now, holding that right lane, coming up on an intersection. We'll see what happens here. Slowing down, stopping for the intersection like we've seen multiple times before, obeying those traffic laws at least. We'll have to see what the LAPD decides to do as this works its way now more northbound. Green light here, working up to this intersection through Buena Vista on San Fernando Road. Working our way in general. Suspect keeps going on here, right back up into the Pacoima area, as that's where San Fernando kind of leads as it makes its way up towards the Newhall Pass. Suspect speeding up quite a bit, 81 miles an hour here on San Fernando Road. Very, very dangerous here on a surface street. Actually, I'm sorry, 102 miles an hour right now, according to Skyview 5. Very, very dangerous. So LAPD is going to back out on the ground and just follow this from the air. It's a lot safer to do that. So that air unit can keep up just like we can, which is fantastic. So they're going to call this out, and if the suspect slows down or something happens, they're going to call in those units and coordinate the perimeter to apprehend that suspect. But still continuing about 82 miles an hour here, coming up on a red light maybe, slowing down quite a bit as we come up here to San Fernando and our Villa Avenue here in the Los Angeles. We're back in Los Angeles City now. Now the pilots on this is in the Burbank airspace, so they have to not only be worrying about where they're flying, what else is in the sky with them, but those LAPD pilots have to get permission to fly where they're at. They're very low. They're very close to the airport, so that can be a challenge for an airport like Burbank that's very active with its commercial flights coming in and out. You can't make one of those go around or wait on pursuit, so sometimes the air units have to back off just like we do here in Sky 5. But Burbank Tower doing a great job of working with both the air unit of LAPD following this pursuit, as well as us here in Sky 5 to stick with this, almost hitting that car there. Hard on the brakes by that suspect. Wow, right on the brakes, right on the tailgate of that suspect, or of that vehicle now. And it looks like, based on the driver's reactions there, it may have been an impact, possibly. They're kind of looking around, trying what's going on. But that driver of that Audi there, the suspect wanted with the stolen vehicle, looks like a mustache with a black hat, tank top, and listening to some music or something, making a lot of movements inside that vehicle here as we are northbound San Fernando out of Arvilla. We see how LAPD is just holding back, trying to stay away from this vehicle due to the nature of how the pursuit was turning just a few minutes ago. As they got close, the suspect increased their speed to very dangerous speeds, so they kind of pulled off on the ground and kind of just holding back, trying to see what the suspect does. Continuing on, northbound San Fernando, through Arvilla now. We're getting into a little more traffic now, and so we'll have to see what the suspect does as this continues, because the traffic's not going to lighten up any, especially this time of night when people are coming home from work, things like that, going to dinner. The roads become a little more busy now that, California has reopened. So luckily I got around that bus there. That suspect's not going to have to be behind that SUV there and put them into any more danger. But speeding on here about 60 miles an hour northbound San Fernando, coming up on Claiborne here. In the city of Los Angeles, LAPD holding behind a pretty far distance. Air unit still overhead, in addition to us over this pursuit of a stolen vehicle suspect here in Sky 5. Starting around 6:14, one passenger already taken into custody. Now we're making our way back still northbound San Fernando through about Ratner, and soon here we'll cross under the 5 freeway and continue our way into like the Sunland area, making our way through Sunland Boulevard right there. And now the area ship overhead is still calling this pursuit for those ground units, trying to figure out what best is next to bring this to an end. Sometimes that's a pit maneuver, sometimes it's spike strips, sometimes it's just following it. Left turn on Vineland from San Fernando, and we'll see what the suspect does. We're going to turn northbound on Katrina from Vineland. Sorry, Cantera from Vineland. A little glare on my map. Try to get a better shot inside the vehicle, see what that suspect's up to. Looks like one hand on the steering wheel, the other in that center console, kind of waving it around. Cantera to Fair Street now. We're going back towards the northeast, and making our way towards San Fernando. Again, we'll see what happens here as this pursuit continues. Very small street here. Olinda coming back out onto San Fernando. See what happens here, what the suspect decides to do, and we're going back northbound on San Fernando. Oh, good spike strip there by the LAPD. The spike strip probably got at least 1 or 2 tires. We'll have to hear what the ground units see once this continues on, and as those tires start to deflate through that red light there. The suspect now getting a little spooked by that spike strip. Now the way those spike strips work is those strips that unfold as they're thrown out are full of hollow spiked tubes. And when the suspect drives over those spike strips, those tubes with the spikes get stuck in those tires and create a hole that begin to let the air out and start deflating those tires, making it a lot harder for the suspect to drive. In two manners, both the control of the vehicle, being able to steer, as well as the power drain of the vehicle. Once those tires are gone, it's a lot harder for the vehicle to get traction and move, and so it puts a lot of strain on that vehicle and can actually cause some issues with the engine and the transmission and things like that. So we'll have to see what happens as this continues. Sometimes the letting out of the air is kind of delayed, especially depending on the type of tire and how well the spike strip's activated. But we'll continue to watch it, and that might not even be here on the driver's side, quite possibly the passenger side. But as we get more information on if those tires deflate, we'll keep you posted. And to me here in Sky 5, it looks like at least that driver's side front tire is a little deflated compared to the rear, and it looks like that the rear one might be deflating as well. So it may have got both the driver front and back tires. We kind of saw it on that side of the vehicle as the pursuit ran over those spike strips, and we'll see a little better as it slows down. It's hard with these low profile tires, but it looks like they are riding a little low down there on the bottom compared to how tires usually ride. So as this continues, not only is it going to be tougher just due to the lack of air in the tire, but those tires aren't made to run flat for the most part. So we'll probably see those tires start to break up and break off over time if this pursuit continues on for much longer. So we'll continue to watch those tires. A successful spike strip by the LAPD here on San Fernando Road, going northbound through Sheldon now, and making our way back into the Pacoima area. So back where this pursuit started nearly an hour and 15 minutes ago. Now the pursuit has made a full circle down through Burbank, through Glendale, and here back to the north through Sunland and everything like that as we continue into the Pacoima area, the Foothill Division of LAPD, where this pursuit first started. We'll pull out just a little bit wider and see if there's LAPD behind. Doesn't look like it right now. They're still holding into that tracking mode. So we'll have to see what continues as this pursuit makes its way up towards Bradford and then towards Osborne as we work our way northbound on San Fernando. Next freeway that this road will intersect will be the 118, and there are on and off ramps there, so we'll see what happens. But now we're still working through the Pacoima area. LAPD has an airship overhead. Burbank, Glendale has their airship overhead as well as us media ships. We are in the area of Whiteman Airport, so all the different helicopters are having to work with the Whiteman Tower right now to get permission to fly here, to coordinate where they are so there's no accidents. So a lot of different things going on in those pilots' minds and their ears as we work on this pursuit. And then with the change of direction, that's going to change things too. Now we're westbound on Bradford, coming up on Telfair. We'll see what happens here. Suspect slowing down, and it looks like we're just going to continue here, slowing down quite a bit. We'll try to take a look at those passenger side tires to see if maybe we got some spikes there, but you can just see how full those two tires look compared to the ones on the other side. So from my experience, it seems like those driver's side tires were the ones that were caught by that spike strip, and they did start to deflate. So we'll have to see what happens as this pursuit continues on. Slowing down here into a neighborhood here, Haddon and Bradford. Working into a neighborhood, and we're just going to get out of the way as much as possible. It's a little tough with all the different aircraft in the area, but we'll keep an eye on it here for you in Sky 5. Haddon and at about Bracken here, going about 30 miles an hour in this neighborhood here in the Pacoima, Arleta area. I'll just pull out to a little bit wider shot. LAPD's kind of re-engaged. They're right behind the suspect. You see the airship still overhead as well. Turning back to the east on Montague from Haddon. And this will take the suspect, if they continue, all the way back to San Fernando. Now, interesting piece of information we just learned from the LAPD dispatch is that the vehicle's registered owner actually is on Haddon. So we're in the area of where this vehicle belongs. Now it is listed stolen, so we don't believe that the driver would be necessarily familiar with that address unless that's where they stole the vehicle from. But it is interesting that we're back in the same neighborhood as where this suspect vehicle belongs. Now we're at about San Fernando and Osborne here in the Pacoima area, still continuing northbound into a little bit heavier traffic. Now this area gets a little congested this time of night, especially working our way up towards the 118 freeway, up to about 50 miles an hour now. What we understand is there was a successful second spike strip back there on Montague right as it turned onto San Fernando Road. So at this point, we've had 2 spike strips go, and we should start to see some of those tires go flat as this continues on, and that should put the vehicle into a state where it's a little harder for the suspect to drive. And I can tell you when those tires come off and those rims start rubbing on that ground, we can often get quite the light show up here in Sky 5 with those sparks going. So hopefully it doesn't come to that and that this ends very successfully, but those become the scary moments because the vehicle doesn't have any traction, and those different sparks and stuff that are coming off that rim is actually breaking down, and we've actually seen vehicles catch on fire from those sparks going on underneath the vehicle, getting involved with the fuel tank, all sorts of different things. So while we don't want to see that happen, we want this to end peacefully, but that could be where this is headed if this continues. They are saying on the scanner that at least one tire was successfully hit by the spike strip. It doesn't look like, now we're looking back on the driver's side, that those 2 tires have deflated too much more. But we'll see what happens here. Stale red light, San Fernando and Van Nuys right here. And it looks like the suspect is stopping for traffic once again. And if you're just joining us on KTLA.com or KTLA Facebook, as well as KTLA Plus now, I'm Colton Von Pertz in Sky 5 with my pilot David Viskovich. We're in the area of Pacoima, right here at Van Nuys and San Fernando Road. This pursuit of a stolen 2018 black Audi, we see it right here, started at 6:14. So we're over an hour and 15 minutes into this pursuit now. Started here in the Pacoima area, made its way all the way down to Burbank, all the way down to Glendale, and has made its way all the way back up here. LAPD is still involved in the pursuit, even getting assistance from Glendale as well as Burbank as well. So lots of different agencies involved in this, and this driver, for the most part, following traffic signals, running a lot of stop signs, but not driving too erratic. Saw some high speeds earlier, but right there you saw the suspect waited until the light had turned green, northbound San Fernando Road through Van Nuys. Next Major is going to be running right along the 118. 118 freeway has on and off ramps right here, so we'll have to see what happens if the suspect decides to maybe take one of those and get on the freeway. Hasn't been on the freeway in quite some time, for about an hour now actually. And so we'll continue to follow this as it makes its way northbound San Fernando, coming up on Fillmore Street, coming onto the 118, and then working into the city of San Fernando after that. But LAPD not willing to give up this pursuit. It's been following it for over an hour. Has backed off a few times on the ground, but always kept that airship overhead. San Fernando, and that's the exit for the 118 freeway right there. Suspect continues to go northbound as we approach Paxton here. In the Burbank area, approaching San Fernando right at the 118. If you're familiar with the area, there's a Costco right here, as well as a few other stores. And now we're going to go right under that 118 freeway. We'll catch the vehicle on the other side. You see LAPD ground units are right behind. And we'll just continue on northbound on San Fernando Road here as we went under the 118. Now, if you are just joining us, a piece of information that we found out earlier in the pursuit, right before we got overhead, is that a passenger, a second suspect, got out of that vehicle and was taken into custody by the LAPD. The vehicle stopped on the at a light. The suspect, the passenger, hopped out and was apprehended, and the chase continued as the driver drove away. We are now making our way into the city of San Fernando onto Truman Street here. And so we'll have to see what the suspect does as we get to the north end of the San Fernando Valley. Now, coming up on another stoplight, we'll see what happens here. Truck through that intersection. Luckily, in this pursuit, we've seen a lot of pursuits here on Sky 5. Looks like that suspect's going to run that light, but the suspect has been pretty good about stopping and looking for cross-traffic things as we went, and we haven't seen any near calls with accidents of vehicles or pedestrians, which is fantastic for the public safety side of this. The last thing we want to do is see anyone else get hurt or any more property damage. Truman Street at Brand Avenue now. Just pull out just a little bit wider. You see that vehicle backing up. And the LAPD is still behind, holding just a little farther back. Now, San Fernando City has its own police department, and so the LAPD dispatchers as well as the air units are going to be coordinating with that San Fernando PD, getting them involved. They know this area best. They know their streets best. So inviting those officers to possibly just know that this is in the area, so if it does end, they can assist with apprehending the suspect. The communications teams, those dispatchers, as well as the supervisors, do a great job at communicating with the different agencies, as there are so many here in the LA County area, and they work very, very well together. They all share their same frequencies and things like that, so they can always be in communication. Say something ends in an area that isn't necessarily their territory. But LAPD is still taking charge on this pursuit with their air unit overhead, those ground units on the ground. And we'll have to see what happens as it makes its way here through San Fernando, Truman still, and McClay right now. Now we're seeing on the comments, people asking how fast can a car go on its rims. It's really hard to say. We've seen vehicles go in the 60s, but also vehicles that can't run on more than 20 miles an hour. We're still in the San Fernando area, working on Truman Street, just about Workman. As we continue northbound, LAPD is still involved in this pursuit. Their airship overhead, and multiple media agencies as well. You see people out on the street kind of seeing what's going on. Very dangerous situation. Turning into looks like a little business area now. We'll see what happens here. Good option for the police to kind of box the vehicle in. It doesn't look like they're going to do that. Vehicle's back out onto Hubbard from Truman. Going now to the more north from Truman on Hubbard. Now, LAPD was right there, right on the corner, and chose not to box the suspect in. They might know something we don't about that suspect or what the suspect has in the vehicle. We haven't seen them use any of those tactics to box in the suspect. Earlier, we saw the suspect go into an actual cul-de-sac with about 7 units behind it, and they just let the suspect turn around and continue on, going right past all the vehicles there. It's a little different of a tactic. We've seen sometimes where they're very forceful and they bring it to an end, but also in this situation, they're holding back and being a little more cautious about what they do with the suspect. Now, even though the LAPD has said multiple times they've had successful spikes on those tires, doesn't mean the vehicle doesn't have run flat tires. And what those are a little more reinforced tires that they don't need the air to run. It's pretty much so that the vehicle can get to a maintenance shop, say that the vehicle gets a nail or something like that without having to worry about patching the tire right away or switching it out. So it's possible the vehicle has run flats. Maybe that's why we're not seeing any of those tires come off or spark or anything like that. So LAPD is still trying to figure out the best course of action to bring this to an end, whether that's pit maneuver, trying other tactics, including more spike strips. See what happens. Another successful spike there. All 4 tires went over that one. So we'll have to see what happens there as we continue now, turning from Hubbard down to Foothill, southbound Foothill from Hubbard. So we've been talking about why those tires aren't going flat, but if you look at that driver front tire right there, you can see how it's separating from the rim. So that tire is flat and separating from that rim. You can see smoke coming up from the engine compartment now. So the suspect's putting a lot of strain on that engine, a lot of strain on that vehicle right now, trying to drive it with those flat tires. Even if they might be run flats or something like that, they're still not holding up. You can see that separation. So we've also kind of noticed in the last few moments how the vehicle has started to swerve. It's having a little less success navigating, and that could be for that reason right there. Is look at how that tire is kind of separating from that rim. We'll have to see what happens and if that tire comes off as this continues, but the vehicle is being very stressed by this new issue with the tire being flat. You saw that smoke probably coming off the radiator or something else in the engine compartment, and that could be a sign that we're nearing the end of this pursuit. Continuing on southbound Foothill, right about Vaughn Street here in the San Fernando Pacoima area. Coming back up on the 118 freeway, we'll continue south on that, and we'll be approaching the San Fernando Recreation area. There are a bunch of different on-ramps and off-ramps for the 210 and 118 right here, so a few different options for that suspect, but it looks like they're just content on continuing on the surface streets here, and we'll see where this continues to go as this goes on. That driver's side front tire severely impacted by those spike strips, just holding on barely. You see the separation there as this continues on. I'm not sure what the passenger side tires look like right now. We're in the position we're in. It's hard to see. So we'll continue on here, see what's happening. My pilot, David Viskovich, looks like he's going to try to get us a little better shot of that passenger side as well, just maneuvering around all the other aircraft that are in this area. Not only are there media over this, but the police as well. And then this is an active airspace with the Whiteman Airport in the area. So there's just a lot of different factors, a lot of different aircraft that our pilots have to maneuver, and David's doing a great job at that for us. Still looks like those tires on the driver's side or passenger side are fully intact, or at least running that way. The only one that's severely impacted right now would be that driver's side front tire, which looks like it's separating from the rim. And if we're just comparing those passenger side tires, it does look like that front passenger is a little low, and it is kind of bulging a little bit. So my assignment desk manager, Matt, noticing that on is a little bit bigger of a monitor and calling that out, so thank you for that. Still on Foothill, coming up on Terabella. Next we'll come and be going towards Osborne. Coming up on a red light here. This is actually Osborne right here, through that. And as we continue on, there's going to be the 210 freeway, and then Foothill will continue, and it'll make its way all the way down to Glendale once again. So we might be going on another big circle around LA if this continues on the surface streets, or even the freeways for that matter. We haven't seen this vehicle get on the freeway for some time. For over an hour now. CHP never really got involved. It was always LAPD, who are still active in this pursuit. Cars smoking, right front tire starting to smoke. You can see that there. And the suspect is running on the rim over here from the airship overhead. Losing control, kind of swerving back and forth. Now we'll see what happens as this continues. The driver's going to have a harder and harder time driving this vehicle on those rims. There's no traction, and the vehicle begins to dig into that asphalt. The heavy vehicle, really delicate asphalt we see that driver's side tire starting to break up and kind of wobble there. Well, that should fly off any minute as well. So getting very situation, passenger side front tire off and into the woods, and we will see what happens as we continue on. Still continuing Southbound on Foothill under the 210 freeway, going about 50 miles an hour now, running on at least one rim only. That driver's side tire is probably not far behind, so we'll be on two rims. And it makes it very hard for this vehicle to maneuver when they lose those tires, especially the front, because they won't have traction in that vehicle. But the heavy weight of that engine is just going to start digging into that asphalt. You can see how the driving is starting to change, having to make those more wider movements. And can't be as technical with the driving as you're kind of fighting against the weight of the vehicle when you lose those tires like that. And if you're just joining us on KTLA.com, KTLA Facebook, or KTLA Plus, Colton Von Person, Sky 5 still, with my pilot David Biskovich. This pursuit of a stolen black Audi 2018 started in Pacoima about 6:15 p.m. It's been going on for over an hour and a half now. And we're here on Foothill Boulevard, coming up on Christie, just paralleling the 210 freeway on the north side right now as it makes its way out of the Pacoima area and into the more Sun Valley area of Los Angeles. Foothill goes all the way from up near the Newhall Pass all the way down into Glendale. So very long road, very open. LAPD successfully doing at least 2 spikes on this vehicle. Both the front tires are popped. That passenger side front tire there, the whole tire is completely gone. It came off about 2-3 minutes ago, and the driver's just running on a rim now. That driver's side tire is probably not far behind, but this is going to put a lot of stress on that vehicle. What we know about the suspect or the situation so far is we got a driver in there, black tank top, black hat, and a passenger came out early in the pursuit. Vehicle stopped, passenger came out, was taken into custody, pursuit continued on. You see that driver's side tire now beginning to smoke a little bit as we continue here southbound on Foothill. It's a little hard to see just because we're a little far away, but that's okay. We'll get the gist of it, and we probably will see that tire come off any second as well. Those rims are pretty strong to be able to hold up a car, but over time they start to wear down, and we'll see what happens as that continues and as they warm up. Very dynamic pursuit coming along here, going about 60 miles an hour here southbound Foothill Boulevard, coming up on Conover, over the riverbed here, and making our way south. LAPD is still involved in this pursuit, even though we don't see those units right behind. I'll pull out just a little bit wider. No units right behind, but we do have an air unit overhead. Multiple units, probably about a quarter mile back. They're holding back just a little bit, trying to see if that suspect will slow down. But after those spike strips, suspect said, nope, I'm staying away from you guys. Bad news when the police are behind me. And so he's sped up just a little bit, well, not just a little bit, quite a bit since those spike strips, and has been driving quite a bit more erratically. Turning to the west on Wheatland, and this goes under the freeway and pretty much into a more residential area. Kind of makes its way along the riverbed here. We'll see what happens. Suspect still having trouble driving. You see kind of weaving there. Wow, just missing that car. Wow, losing control there. Back tire's going. Back passenger tire is off and just hanging on by a thread as we continue eastbound on Wheatland, spinning out of control now into that center divider, wrong way, and that tire just holding on, that's for sure. Pretty crazy, if I may say so myself. Driver speeding up quite a bit, 60 miles an hour, fishtailing a bit. We'll have to see what happens. Very dangerous for those oncoming drivers as well as drivers same side of the road. We saw that car almost get clipped. But this pursuit is getting more and more dangerous by the minute. It's amazing that that tire is still holding on. It's probably got a lip on the inside that's holding it onto that rim. But that's going to go pretty shortly here. You see how that tire is continuing to loosen up. Vehicle's still speeding up. Tire, there it goes. See you later. driver and passenger rear tires gone right about the same time, and now we're down to just about one tire's vehicle just fishtailing as it goes. If it slows down, he's going to lose a lot of traction and a lot of ability to maneuver, not that he has much right now, into the wrong side of the road, spinning, and we are almost out of control, but kind of matches it there, and now we are spinning around. Stop. Other tire gone, so now all 4 tires are gone, only on rims, going west or eastbound on Foothill now. LAPD having to turn around. Vehicle going about 60 mile an hour, only on rims right now here in the Sunland area. Eastbound on Wentworth now, coming up on Cottonwood, still about 60 miles an hour. Almost seems like now that those tires are gone, the vehicle has a bit more traction to be able to hold onto that ground a little more. Now this is going to dig into the ground as this goes on too, and as those rims start to heat up, so that's going to cause some damage to the road. But right now we're more worried about the damage and the danger to the public. Very dangerous situation. This driver driving at these high rates of speed, 50 miles an hour right now. Wentworth coming up on Marybell. And there's still a lot of people out on the roads right now, so we're making our way back towards the 210, back towards Foothill Boulevard. We'll see what happens there. Kind of a left or right situation as we get there, and we'll just have to see what happens. It looks like the vehicle has its hazards lights on. That's kind of a new addition to this equation, but with no more tires, we'll have to see what happens as this continues. How long can the vehicle go? It puts a lot of stress on that vehicle having no tires, no traction, and just kind of running on those rims, and it puts a lot of lots of strain on those rims too, and those could break off, and then we'll just see the car laying on the ground. So we'll have to see what happens as it continues in that left-hand turn pocket right over to that right. We're going to continue southbound Foothill from Wentworth. LAPD right on this suspect's tail. One of the things the LAPD is keeping tabs on is there's actually a SUV that's following this pursuit very closely that they're trying to keep tabs on because they're not sure the suspect or that person's involvement. Not the best thing you want to do is follow pursuit closely or at all because you're putting yourself in danger. And so they're going to probably stop that vehicle and see what was going on with that. But they've been following long enough that the LAPD noticed and actually started calling out and talking about it. A pedestrian walking up to the vehicle, looks like they're on their phone. Very dangerous situation. This person could be stopped for involving themselves in a police incident, as a whole bunch of different things. So not a good thing, not a good situation. because we don't know the state or what's going on in that vehicle, what the driver may or may not have, and so just that person is putting themselves in a lot of danger. Now LAPD is going to stop and talk to that individual. Now we just heard that over the scanner because of now their involvement in this pursuit. So last thing you want to do if there's pursuit in your area is go outside and get involved. Stay indoors, watch it on KTLA. We'll bring you the best shot possible for as long as possible compared to it just kind of driving by real quick. And just like that, that pedestrian, that civilian that kind of got involved, walked up to the vehicle, has been detained. So LAPD is going to question them, see what their involvement is, and there might be some something that may come out of that. We don't know, or some sort of charge, because you're not supposed to get involved in a police investigation like that. Still southbound Foothill through, let's see, my map's not updating quite yet, through Wingate. To the Tahunga area as we continue. Still going about 45 miles an hour here southbound. All four rims. No tires left on this Audi 2018 stolen vehicle. Digging more and more into the ground as we speak. LAPD coming up on their tail. See what happens as this pursuit continues on, but that vehicle has no more tread and is just digging its rims into the ground, putting a lot of strain on the vehicle. Looks like LAPD might be considering a pit maneuver, kind of in that spot for one, but the vehicle's sped up and it's not a safe spot to do that any longer, so they're going to back off just a little bit, but they are ready to do that. LAPD has been involved in this pursuit from the beginning. Foothill Division up in the Pacoima area. That Crown Vic we just saw moments ago has been pretty much the lead vehicle on this pursuit. They've had a bunch of other vehicles get involved and take over at different times, allowing that driver to take a break. It's very stressful being the lead vehicle in a pursuit. It takes a lot of coordination, a lot of focus, and so sometimes they'll switch out to get a new set of less exhausted eyes and arms in the pursuit to drive on this. But this unit still right on the suspect's tail. We'll see what happens. Vehicle speeding up once again, now throwing up a lot more dust as it speeds out of control into that center divider. Wrong way now. Vehicle's having to swerve out of the way to get out of the way of this vehicle. And we're just continuing here, southbound Foothill through Pinewood now. And that's what we were talking about earlier. As we lose those tires, vehicle has a harder time steering as those rims dig into the ground. So on that kind of turn right there, the only option the suspect had was to kind of weave into that center divider into the wrong way of traffic to make that turn. So a lot wider turns we're going to see as this pursuit continues, and especially as it speeds up as well. So we'll have to continue to follow this as this goes through Foothill Boulevard, coming up on Haynes Canyon. And as it goes down this way, we'll make our way back into Glendale. LAPD airship, LAPD on the ground. Glendale PD keeping an eye on this as well. Their airship's kind of been in the area, and then multiple media ships overhead. So a lot of eyes on this vehicle as it makes its way south on Foothill through Tahunga Canyon Boulevard here in Los Angeles. Now we're in the city of Glendale. We passed through Lowell on Foothill, so now we're in the city of Glendale, working our way about 55 miles an hour, still southbound on Foothill Boulevard through Boston now. Sparks starting to fly as that driver's side front rim catches and loses its momentum there, but it looks like it uncaught and continues on. But we'll see that more and more as this pursuit continues here into the Glendale area. LAPD is still quick behind this stolen vehicle out of Pacoima. There's that rim catching again. That's something we'll probably see more and more on. Sparks starting to fly. As those rims kind of break down, they get caught on different components. The rotors can't handle it as much, things like that. So we'll see what happens as this continues, but that's going to cause some problems for this driver as this continues. Still southeastbound on Foothill at about Cloud Avenue. Working through Glenwood now, actually. Still about 45, 50 miles an hour. This vehicle going hard on the brakes there. That's what's happening. The suspect's throwing on the brakes. Rims stop, but the car keeps going. That's why we're seeing those sparks happening, and that's going to keep happening more and more. And we're going to see the vehicle kind of spin out of control and continue on as it goes. Vehicle's trying to get out of the way of this suspect now as we continue on southbound here on Foothill Boulevard, southeastbound here at La Crescenta here. Now this is going to be the sheriff's territory. LAPD's been involved, Burbank's been involved, Glendale's been involved, and now we're in sheriff's territory. But it looks like LAPD believes this is where the pursuit is going to terminate. The vehicle hasn't moved since those other vehicles kind of cleared out. We'll see what happens here. But now this is going to be a standoff situation. The vehicle stopped. The officers are out taking that position of concealment, that cover, and the call-outs begin. They're going to call for that suspect to open their door, roll down their window, throw out those keys to come out peacefully. But at this point, it doesn't look like the suspect's going to comply. Now, the officers could be out here all night. They have that position of advantage. They have the resources to switch out if necessary. The suspect's kind of stuck into that vehicle by themselves. So we'll have to see how long this lasts and when the suspect gives up, or if other techniques are going to have to be used to bring this to a peaceful termination. Now, what happens when a pursuit terminates like this and the suspect doesn't come out is always the question. Well, LAPD has a bunch of different plans that they train for. One of those is just this. They're going to hold their position of advantage and decide what option is next. Sometimes they'll deploy less lethal rounds into the vehicle to open up those windows and see better, especially with those tinted windows. Sometimes they'll wait for the SWAT to arrive and bring in those Bearcats. We'll just have to see how the night goes, what they know about that suspect. They did take that passenger into custody, and so you can be sure that they've been interviewing that passenger, seeing what the state of the driver is, what's going through their mind, why they were running other than the stolen, if there's anything more. If there are any weapons in the car, those are all things that suspect will be questioned about, and hopefully they'll get some answers on what's going on inside that vehicle, especially with those tinted windows. It makes it very, very hard for those officers to see inside and get an idea of what's going on. So they're definitely planning for the worst case scenario. You can kind of see them bringing shields out, kind of setting up their tactics on how they're going to approach this vehicle and take this suspect into custody. The other thing they're going to do is bring in canine officers and their canine partners, so that if the suspect does come out and run, those canine are a lot faster than the humans are in running after a suspect, so that could be a game changer. And sometimes they even use those canines to go in and actually pull a suspect out of the vehicle. We've seen that a few times as well. So we'll keep an eye on this from above and bring you the latest as this kind of goes on. This is Foothill Boulevard right about La Crescenta, and this is sheriff's territory, so we might see some involvement of the sheriffs as well. Foothill's going to be closed in both directions, as well as La Crescenta. They're moving people away just due to the dangerous situation of this. They are downrange from the way of fire, so they don't want to put anyone in harm's risk as this termination goes on. Say anything does end in gunfire. Beanbags into that back window. You see that officer with that green rifle. That's a beanbag gun, and they're going to try to break out that back window with those beanbags. One round in, we'll see what happens there. And what they try to do is just try to get a better view inside that vehicle. Also just try to encourage that suspect to leave the vehicle because of that. Often those rounds that they put in can have pepper and different things in them that can actually persuade the suspect to come out as well. It looks like they only put one round into that back window. They one beam-down shot into that back window, driver's side. The LAPD using that to get a better view inside that vehicle. They might put a few more in there. We'll have to see what happens as this continues.